Welcome to the dark side of perfection. These people committed crimes with absolute, breathtaking mastery. Sometimes I wonder just how they managed to pull these stunts. In this video, I'm diving into the elite league of true crime, the heist that left detectives speechless, and schemes that are so perfectly engineered, they still haunt detectives decades later. If you love watching brilliance, well, dark brilliance in action. The kind of cold, calculated genius where every move is flawless and the perpetrators just seem to vanish into thin air and left behind unsolved case files. On December 10, 1968, in Tokyo, a man in a police uniform on a motorcycle stopped a bank car carrying employee bonuses. 294 million yen, roughly $817,000 then, or millions adjusted today. He convinced the four employees there was a bomb threat tied to an explosion at the manager's house. After they exited, he inspected the car, created a smoke distraction, and drove off with the cash. Now you might be wondering something like, how can they be so stupid? But this con man really executed the crime perfectly. Let's take a look at the details. The 300 million yen robbery is one of the most famous unsolved crimes in Japanese history. What actually happened? On the morning of December 10, 1968, in Fuchu, Tokyo, near Fuchu Prison, four employees from the Kokubunji branch of the Nippon Trust Bank were transporting 294,307,500 yen, roughly equivalent to about 817,520 US dollars at the time, or significantly more in today's terms. Around 1.1 billion yen, or $7 to $8 million adjusted for inflation, in a Nissan Cedric company car. The cash consisted of employee bonuses for Toshiba's Fuchu factory workers, packed in metal boxes. A young man dressed in a motorcycle police officer uniform on a white motorcycle stopped the car just 200 meters from its destination. He told the employees that their bank branch manager's house had been bombed and that a warning had been received about an explosive device planted in their vehicle. The employees got out. The fake officer crawled under the car, then dramatically rolled out shouting that it was about to explode. He ignited a warning flare, creating smoke and flames, causing the employees to back away. He then jumped into the car and drove off with the money. The entire ruse took only a few minutes. No guns or real explosives were used. It was a clever con rather than a violent heist. The thief later abandoned the bank car and transferred the boxes to other pre-stolen vehicles. The thief left behind 120 pieces of random, everyday household items at the scene, apparently to confuse investigators. The police motorcycle had been painted white. A massive police effort followed. 780,000 montage, composite, pictures were distributed, 110,000 suspects were listed, and 170,000 officers were involved. The largest investigation in Japanese history at the time. Millions of fingerprints were checked, with no matches. Early suspects included a 19-year-old son of a police officer who died by suicide via potassium cyanide poisoning days later. No money was found, and he was officially cleared. Others arrested on unrelated charges or with alibis. One man with unexplained large sums of money was questioned but not charged. The case was never solved. The statute of limitations expired in December 1975, after 7 years for the crime at the time, and civil liabilities ended in 1988, meaning the perpetrator could theoretically confess without legal risk. Well, our guy didn't confess and no definitive evidence was left behind. It remains Japan's largest heist by amount stolen and is still unsolved over 55 years later. The audacious, non-violent method, relying on social engineering and a fake authority figure, captured public imagination and inspired books, TV episodes like NHK's Project X, and documentaries. In the early hours of March 18, 1990, two men dressed as Boston police officers talked their way into the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. They tied up the guards and spent 81 minutes stealing 13 artworks, including pieces by Rembrandt, Vermeer, Degas, and Manet, worth an estimated $500+ million today. They left empty frames behind, which still hang in the museum as an haunting reminder.
How exactly did they manage to pull this off? Let's dive into details. The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum art theft is the largest unsolved art heist in history, occurring on March 18, 1990, in Boston, Massachusetts. In the early morning hours, around 1:24 a.m., shortly after St. Patrick's Day celebrations, two men dressed as Boston police officers rang the night bell at the museum. They claimed they were responding to a disturbance call. One of the two on-duty security guards broke protocol and buzzed them in through the employee entrance. The thieves quickly overpowered and handcuffed the guards, taping their eyes, mouths, and hands, then moved them to the basement. Over the next 81 minutes, they selectively stole 13 works of art. They avoided triggering many alarms by knowing the museum's layout and security weaknesses, and they took the surveillance videotapes before leaving. No one was physically harmed. I personally don't think this was a highly sophisticated heist. I mean, where are the elements of deception? The plan was a 50-50 that could have easily gone sideways in my opinion, but it's still a perfect crime nevertheless. The case remains unsolved, with no artworks recovered and no arrests made. The FBI has led the investigation, focusing on organized crime connections, particularly Boston area gangs and the mafia during a period of internal wars. The FBI believes the thieves were tied to a criminal organization, possibly from Dorchester or Mid-Atlantic/New England networks. In 2015, they stated they had identified the two thieves, both now deceased. Suspects and persons of interest over the years have included figures linked to mobster Carmelo Merlino, Robert Gentile, Bobby Donati, murdered in 1991, and others. Some leads involved attempted sales or stings, but nothing panned out. Theories include the heist being planned for leverage in criminal negotiations, resale on the black market, or as a trophy. The odd selection of items, including low-value ones, and amateurish elements, e.g., cutting canvases, suggest it may not have been carried out by sophisticated art thieves. The statute of limitations for the theft itself expired long ago, so the original thieves cannot be prosecuted for it, though handling stolen goods remains an issue. The museum and FBI continue to actively investigate. The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum offers a $10 million reward, doubled in 2017, for information leading directly to the recovery of the artworks in good condition, the largest such bounty by a private institution. An extra $100,000 is offered specifically for the Eagle Finial. So folks, this is your chance at easy money. Can't be that hard, right? I mean, what could possibly go wrong? The museum has undertaken restorations and maintains hope for the work's return. The heist has inspired books, documentaries, like Netflix's This Is a Robbery, and ongoing public interest. As of 2026, the case is still open. On November 24, 1971, a man using the alias Dan Cooper, misreported as D.B. Cooper, boarded Northwest Orient Flight 305 from Portland to Seattle. He claimed to have a bomb, demanded $200,000 in ransom, about $1.6 million today, and parachutes, released passengers in Seattle, then ordered the plane to fly toward Mexico. Mid-flight over rural Washington, he parachuted out the rear stairs into a stormy night with the cash and vanished. But how did this dark genius get away with it? Let's dive into details. D.B. Cooper, real alias used, Dan Cooper, is the unidentified man who carried out a daring and still unsolved aircraft hijacking on November 24, 1971, Thanksgiving Eve. It remains the only unsolved hijacking in U.S. commercial aviation history. The hijacking: a man in his mid-40s, wearing a business suit and carrying a briefcase, bought a one-way ticket on Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305 from Portland, Oregon, to Seattle, Washington. Shortly after takeoff, he handed a flight attendant a note claiming he had a bomb in his briefcase. He demanded $200,000 in ransom, about $1.6 million in today's dollars, and 4 parachutes. The plane landed, passengers were released, and the demands were met. Cooper allowed the crew, pilot, co-pilot, flight engineer, and 1 flight attendant to stay aboard. He ordered the plane to fly toward Mexico City at a low altitude and slow speed, with a refueling stop planned in Reno, Nevada, somewhere over southwestern Washington state, between Seattle and Reno. After 8 p.m. in rainy, dark conditions, Cooper opened the rear air stair door of the Boeing 727 and parachuted out with the money and 2 parachutes. He was never seen again. The name D.B. Cooper came from a reporter's error. The hijacker had used Dan Cooper. The FBI investigated for 45 years, interviewing hundreds of suspects and building an extensive file before closing the active case in 2016. No definitive identification was ever made. In 1980, a boy named Brian Ingram found $5,800 in decaying $20 bills, matching the ransom serial numbers, on a bar along the Columbia River near Vancouver, Washington. This is the only confirmed ransom money recovered. Its location raised questions about where Cooper landed, as it was downstream from the likely drop zone. The rest of the money was never found. Physical evidence from the plane included cigarette butts, a tie, and other items, but DNA and other tests have not conclusively identified anyone. Some believe he landed safely, spent or hid the money, and lived anonymously. Theories point to possible landing areas near the Washougal River or other spots. Many experts think he didn't survive the jump. Poor conditions, unfamiliar terrain, and lack of any trace suggest he may have been injured or killed on impact. Suspects have included various men over the years, e.g., based on sketches, timelines, or confessions, but no definitive evidence. The hijacking inspired a wave of similar skyjackings in the early 1970s, most unsuccessful, leading to major changes in airport security, such as metal detectors and screening procedures. It captured public imagination as a folk hero tale of a clever criminal pulling off an audacious heist. The case has been the subject of books, documentaries, and ongoing fascination more than 50 years later. No one knows for sure who D.B. Cooper was or what happened to him.